Sir. Good evening to all. I'm happy to welcome you back to our Madras Tax Bar webinar series after a long gap. This is our 148th session, and today's session is going to be taken by Janani and Abhinav Vaidyanathan, both of whom are partners. I mean, junior associate at Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan. So, uh, we are it's it's again on a very interesting topic, and recently we've been seeing this litigation for quite often in the Madras High Court. That is the new reassessment provisions under the Income Tax Act, and the various decisions which we've been coming across recently. So it's a very interesting topic. We are looking forward to hear from this. So today's session will be till 5:15, uh, in which we will try to cover up as many questions as possible once they finish the talk. So thank you once again to all for joining us, and all the best to Janani and Abhinav. Over to you.
Thank you, Prithvi.
Thank you, Prithvi. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening to all. So, as we all know, that the Finance Act 2021, they have revamped the entire procedure of reassessment that was existing all along, and a new set of procedure and limitations have been prescribed. Though the section numbers are same, the procedure is completely different. And these new set of reassessment procedures are made effective by the Finance Act 2021 from 1/4/2021. Now, keeping that in mind, in today's webinar, Abhinav and I would like to discuss about the two High Court judgments that have been delivered by one, the Chhattisgarh High Court, and one by the Allahabad High Court, on the issue as to whether notices that have been issued by the department under section 148 after 1/4/2021 invoking the old provisions of law are valid or not valid is the question for consideration. Now, if we see, this question is a subject matter of litigation that is pending before various forums. It is also pending before the Madras High Court, Bombay, Delhi. In fact, we are told that in the Delhi High Court, the arguments are in the process in the last week, and it is also going to continue after the Dasara holidays. So, but it is the Allahabad and Chhattisgarh High Court who have in fact rendered judgments on this. Both have rendered contradictory judgments, one in favor of the department, one in favor of the petitioner. So in today's webinar, Abhinav and I would be discussing about these two judgments. Now, before going into the judgments, Abhinav and I would like to first give all of you a brief overview of what the provisions were existing and how it has been revamped by the Finance Act 2021. And we have also prepared some case studies with respect to these provisions, which we'd like to discuss with you all. And then we will deal with the Taxation and Other Laws Relaxation and Amendment of Certain Provisions Act 2020. So this was formulated by the Parliament during the COVID situation. So we'll be reading a bit about this act and also the impact that this act has created, which has triggered for the discussion of topic in today's webinar. And then first we'll be discussing the Chhattisgarh High Court judgment, which was rendered first. This was rendered in the month of August 2021. So this is a judgment which has granted an order in favor of the department. And then we will discuss the Allahabad High Court judgment, which was delivered later in the month of September. So this judgment has granted an order in favor of the petitioner. So now going forward, so scheme of reassessment. So under the old scheme of reassessment, there were two phrases that were very important. One is reason to believe, and the other one is escaped assessment. Now, this phrase reason to believe has been a subject matter of interpretation for many decades that we will not know. The courts have tried to interpret this reason to believe in every possible way that they can. And in one of the famous judgments of Supreme Courts, in the case of CIT versus Kelvinator of India, there the court has held a reason to believe is something that cannot be based on a mere change of opinion. There should be some solid evidence. There should be some information which the assessee feels that he has not decided in the original assessment proceeding or did not have the opportunity to discuss in the original assessment proceedings. And if he has any new information at a later point in time, then that can be set to fall within the phrase reason to believe. And this is one of the cardinal principle that was dictated by the Supreme Court in this famous judgment. There is also one other principle that this court in the judgment has delivered, that when an assessing officer, he exercises the power to reassess, this should not be a mere power to review. That is, he should not review his own order based on the same information. So these are the two cardinal principles that was dictated by the Supreme Court in these two judgments. Moving forward, if we see in the old act, there is no procedure per se as to how one must do when he receives a 148 notice. The section says that the assessing officer should record reasons before he issues a 148 notice, but the section does not say whether the reasons have to be communicated or not. So this was causing grave hardship to assessees, and that is why the Supreme Court, in the case of GK and Driveshaft, they have prescribed the procedure that both the assessee and the department should follow in a 148 proceeding. The first is that when the department issues a 148 notice, the assessee should file a return of income in response to this, and then he can ask for the reasons recorded for issuing such 148 notice. Now, once the assessee he receives the 148 reasons recorded, he has the opportunity to file objections to it. So once he files the objections, the department is bound to pass a separate speaking order, either accepting the objections and dropping the proceedings, or rejecting the objections and passing a separate order. And after passing this order, the department should again give an opportunity of personal hearing to the assessee before passing the final assessment order. Now, these procedures are not enunciated in the Act. It is not provided in the Act, but it is this Supreme Court which has provided these procedure, and this is being followed until 31st March 2021. It has to be completely and definitely be followed, both by the assessees as well as by the department. Now, this phrase income escaped assessment, the section has both natural meaning as well as deeming provisions. The natural meaning would be that, let's say some income has not been assessed during the original assessment proceedings. And that means, and at a later point in time, the assessing officer finds that this has escaped from assessment. This would be the natural meaning given to the word income escaped assessment. The section also, it provides certain deeming provisions. Say it provides certain circumstances where that particular situation would be called as income escaping assessment. So these are also provided in this section. The old section also provides for certain procedures and limitations. The procedure would be that before issuing a 148 notice, the assessing officer, he has to record the reasons. So that particular procedure has to be completely satisfied. And there is also a limitation with respect to which one can issue notice for reassessment. So there are two cases. One is a normal case where the reassessment can be made within a period of 4 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. There are also cases where there is any concealment of income. Let's say there is a non-disclosure of income by the assessee, or there is no written of income filed by the assessee. In that case, the assessing officer, he can initiate reassessment for a period of 6 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. And suppose some asset is located outside India, then in that case, he has the power to issue reassessment notice for a period of 16 years. So this is what the old reassessment scheme stood. Now, the Finance Act 2021, like I said, has completely revamped the procedure. Now, I'd like to invite Abhinav to throw some light on how the new reassessment scheme has been framed by the Finance Act.
Thank you, Janani. As Janani said, the new scheme for initiating reassessment proceedings has been entirely revamped by the Finance Act 2021. The provisions being 147, 148, 149, there is a new provision being 148A which has been introduced. It is also important to note that as far as the search proceedings are concerned, which were initiated under section 153A and 153C, these two provisions also will no longer be applicable from 1/4/2021. In other words, for initiating search and seizure also, search also under 153 and 153C, notices will be given under section 148. So with this background, section 147, which provides for income escaping assessment. So it provides that an assessing officer can assess, reassess income, or recompute loss, depreciation allowance, or any other allowance or deduction. Additionally, an assessing officer can also assess, reassess income in case of any other issue which has escaped assessment if it comes to his notice subsequently in the course of the proceedings under this particular section 147. So the understanding of this provision is, say if the assessing officer initiates reassessment for one particular issue for which he has information that suggests that income chargeable to tax is escaped assessment. Now, during the course of the proceedings, the assessing officer can subsequently add other issues also, which will make him assess or reassess or recompute that particular income. Now, there is a rider that has been given in this particular provision, which says that section 148A complaints is not required with respect to issues that come to his notice subsequently. Now, what is section 148? I will come to that in the next few slides. Moving on, section 148, the new section 148, provides for when can a notice under section 148 be issued. The new provision reads as, where an assessing officer has information which suggests that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. In the opening itself, there is a significant change that has been made to 148 as it existed earlier. The earlier provision would used to read, where an assessing officer has reason to believe that any income has chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. Therefore, there is a substitution of words from reason to believe to information which suggests that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. Now, what is the scope of this long phrase? We'll come to that in a minute. Now, for an assessing officer to issue a notice under section 158, the new section 158, he will have to obtain a prior approval from the specified authority to issue this notice. Now, who is the specified authority? That is prescribed in section 151 of the Income Tax Act. Additionally, there is a deeming friction created through the explanation to this particular provision, which says that an assessing officer is deemed to have information which suggests that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment for 3 assessment years immediately preceding the relevant assessment year if a search is initiated or a survey is conducted in case of the assessee. It is deemed that he may have the information for 3 assessment years immediately preceding the relevant assessment year, or if the assessing officer is satisfied with prior approval of the principal commissioner, that say any money, bullion is seized in case of any other person that belongs to the assessee, or if any books of accounts or documents have been seized in case of any other person that pertains to assessee. Therefore, through this deeming fiction, for these 3 categories, assessing officer is deemed to have information for 3 assessment years preceding to the relevant assessment year. Moving on. Now we come to the scope of this interesting phrase, information with the assessing officer which suggests that income chargeable to tax is escaped assessment. Now there are 2 legs to this particular definition. Firstly, say any information that is flagged in case of an assessee for a relevant assessment year as per the risk management strategy formulated by the board. Now, so at least till now, until now, the board has not come out with the risk management strategy. It will be interesting to wait and watch as to how the informations get flagged and what are the kinds of information that can get flagged under the risk management strategy. Another important thing to note as far as this information flagging is, it puts out 2 conditions. It must be in case of a particular assessee for a particular relevant assessment year. Therefore, if an assessing officer gets or some information is flagged for assessment year 25-26, he cannot give a notice for assessment year 21-22. The information flagged must relate to a relevant assessment year and for a particular assessee. Only then will that information be used by the assessing officer to issue a notice under section 148. The second leg, final objection raised by the CAG that assessment in case of an assessee for the relevant assessment year is not made in accordance with the IT Act. In this, there is a little interesting aspect. This made word, we have added it in the slide to interpret this in a way that the final objection can be raised by the CAG for an assessment that is not made in accordance with the Act. Say, for example, original assessment proceedings have been concluded for an assessee under section 143.3, order is passed. The final objection of the CAG points out that some portion or some issue in that particular assessment order is not in accordance with the IT Act. Can the CAG's report give the final objection? Yes, it can, because it clearly says that an assessment for an assessee for a relevant assessment year is not made in accordance with the IT Act. The other situation is, say an assessee files his return of income, returns get processed, an intimation under 143.1 is issued to the assessee. can the CAG give a final objection or raise a final objection against that particular intimation? To my mind, that will not be possible, because it specifically says that a final objection has to be raised for an assessment which is not made in accordance with the act. Therefore, that is the reason why we have put in that word made and interpreted it in such a manner. Therefore, for final objection to be raised, an assessment has to be surely made, an assessment order has to be passed, which must not be in accordance with the IT Act. Moving forward. Now, this new provision, section 148A. Earlier, in the pre-existing provisions, an assessing officer can go ahead and issue a notice under section 148 if he has the reason to believe that some income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. Now, with effect from 1/4/2021, there is a preliminary procedure that the assessing officer will have to follow before even issuing a notice under section 148. The first and foremost step is there must be some information in existence with the assessing officer which suggests that income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. As we saw in the previous slide, the information which suggests that the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment, the assessing officer can come to the assessing officer by two ways, either through the risk management strategy or through the final objection by the CAG. Second, the next step is a discretionary step, which is given to the discretion given to the assessing officer to conduct an inquiry with the assessee. For if the assessing officer wants to conduct an inquiry, he has to take an approval from the specified authority and conduct the inquiry with the assessee. Now, the next step is the assessing officer will have to provide a personal hearing to the assessee, for which he will have to take a approval from the specified authority and issue a show cause notice as to why notice 148, notice under section 148 should not be issued. Now, the personal hearing, there is a time limit within which the personal hearing has to be given to the assessee from the issue of notice, say after 7 days or before 30 days from the issue of show cause notice. And say if the assessing officer had exercised his discretion to conduct an inquiry in step 2, he will have to give the results of what had happened during the inquiry also in the SCM. So once the personal hearing is conducted, the assessee is required to give a reply. The assessing officer will have to consider the reply of the assessee, and before passing the order, he will have to take approval from the specified authority again. Now, in the order, what he will have to say is, he will have to decide if this is a fit case to issue a notice under section 158 to initiate reassessment by passing an order. Again, there is a time limit for this also. The assessing officer will have to pass the order within 1 month from the date of reply or due date for filing the reply. Now, there are few other additional points that are to be noted as far as 148 is concerned. This preliminary procedure that the assessing officer has to follow to issue a notice under 158, this procedure will not apply for cases relating to search and seizure. As I earlier said, specified authority is the person who is referred to in section 151. A question can come up whether survey conductor under section 133A, for that also should this procedure under 148 be applied? The answer to that is yes, because the exception is given only for the cases pertaining to search and seizure. Yes, Janani.
Thank you, Abhinav. Moving forward, so the time limits that are prescribed under the new reassessment scheme is also entirely different from what it was existing. So here also there are two circumstances. One is the general rule that notice cannot be issued beyond a period of 3 assessment years from the end of the relevant assessment year. This is for normal cases. There are also special cases where the assessing officer, he can issue notice up to a period of 10 assessment years from the end of the relevant assessment year. But to do this, there are 2 conditions that needs to be satisfied. One is that the evidences reveal that the income that is chargeable to tax that has escaped assessment is more than or likely to be more than 50 lakh rupees, and that income that has escaped assessment should be represented in the form of asset. Now, if these 2 cumulative conditions are satisfied, then in such cases, the assessing officer, he can issue notice up to 10 assessment years from the end of the relevant assessment year. There is also one more proviso that is provided in the section 149 that for assessment years 21, 22 and before, a notice under 148 cannot be issued after a period of 6 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. There is also one more proviso in the section which says that suppose, say, a search is initiated or some books of accounts or assets are requisitioned on or before 31st March 2021, then in that case, the notice has to be issued under the old provisions of search assessment. Like Abhinav said in the previous slides, now search assessments are also included in the new set of reassessment in this particular 148, 149. But whereas if a search is initiated before 131/3/2021, then the notice has to be issued in accordance with the old 153A or 153C only. The procedure that has been prescribed in the old 153 or 153C only followed, and the time limit under the old section only will apply and not the present 149 section of the new reassessment scheme. Now, we have seen that for the special cases where notices can be issued up to a period of 10 assessment years, one of the important condition is that the income that has escaped assessment should be represented in the form of asset. Now, this represented in the form of asset, all of us would wonder what does it actually mean, because this is not something that is defined in the Income Tax Act. But also one important point to be noted is that this is not something that has been newly introduced by the Finance Act 2021. This expression was previously used in section 153A under search proceedings. So there, the phrase represented in the form of asset, it was inserted by Finance Act 2017. And we tried to see if there are any cases which have where courts have interpreted this phrase, but unfortunately we were unable to find any judgments, because this is fairly a very new phrase which has been introduced newly in 2017. So there aren't any cases which explains this phrase. So to understand better, we thought we will go into the memorandum to the Finance Bill 2017 and understand why this particular phrase was inserted. The memorandum, it explains that this particular phrase was inserted in order to protect the interest of revenue, where the tangible evidence that is found during search, and that tangible evidence is represented in the form of an undisclosed investment in any asset, and that same is more than 50 lakhs rupees, then those situations or those circumstances will fall within the phrase represented in the form of asset. So now with this, we had certain doubts as to what all can fall under this. Let's take an example where, say, I claim a depreciation of 15%, but the department says, no, you're eligible only for 10%. Then in that kind of a situation, will the difference in the rate of depreciation, say if the amount is more than 50 lakh rupees, can that fall under the phrase represented in the form of asset? Let us take also another example where I say that particular item is a revenue expenditure, but the department says it is capital. Then if the difference in the amount, again, if it is more than 50 lakh, can it be falling within the phrase represented in the form of asset? So after analyzing, we feel that after looking into the explanation that is given by the memorandum, only those things can fall under represented in the form of asset, which is undisclosed. In these two situations, nothing is undisclosed. There is only a difference of opinion between the assessee and the department as to what should be the rate of depreciation or under what expenditure it will fall under. So there is nothing not disclosed by the assessee. So we feel that these two situations may not fall within this phrase. But otherwise, we'll have to see how this phrase is going to be interpreted by the courts in future, because this phrase has become a very important factor now if the assessing officer wants to initiate up to 10 assessment years. So I think this is going to be a subject matter of interpretation in the coming period. Now I will also do a little study about some case studies that we have prepared using these provisions. So Abhinav, so in this case study, let's take an example where the assessment year is 2015-16, and the original assessment proceedings were completed on 30th March 2017. And the twin conditions for special cases, say that is income escaping assessment is more than 50 lakh, and it is also represented in the form of asset. Now both these conditions are satisfied. And this is also a situation where there is no failure on the part of the assessee to disclose all true and material facts. And also that this 148 notice under the old regime is not issued till 31st March 2021. Now my question is, do you think the assessing officer can issue notice now? If yes, which time limit will he apply? Will he apply the time limit under the old act or under the new act? And what procedure will he follow? Will he follow the procedure of the old assessment scheme or the new assessment scheme?
Annie, as you had pointed out, when you were dealing with the new provision section 149, there is a specific proviso to that particular new provision, which says, for assessment years 21-22 and before, the 6-year time limit will apply. Now, in other words, the new provision, section 149, borrows the old provisions, section 149 1B, which says that a notice for initiating reassessment can be issued up to 6 years. Now, that is the time limit that is being borrowed in the new provision. Number one. Number two, in this particular case, what happens is, even as per the new regime, wherein if an assessing officer has to initiate for up to 10 years, twin conditions are satisfied. Now, the interesting point is, if we go back to the old regime, for an assessing officer to issue notices beyond 4 years, the assessee should have not disclosed fully and truly material facts. Now, as per our case study, that is also satisfied.
Correct.
Now, will the 6-year time limit even apply? The answer to that is yes, because the new provision, section 149, only borrows the 6-year time limit from the old regime. It does not borrow the condition of when an assessing officer can issue a notice beyond 4 years, which is part of section 147. The provision that is borrowed in the new provision is 149 1B, old provisions 149 1B alone, which is 6 years. Therefore, first answer would be the time limit of 6 years will apply. The old conditions under the old provision will not apply. Time limit of 6 years alone will apply. Now, the next question is, both these conditions, cumulative conditions, as far as the new provisions is also complied, why not 10 years, only 6 years? Because of that particular proviso, it specifically states for any assessment year from assessment year 21-22 and before, the 6-year time limit will apply. In this particular case, the time limit gets barred only on 31st March 2022. Therefore, the assessing officer can issue a notice under the new 148 for assessment year 15-16, but the catch is he will have to follow the procedure which is mentioned in the new provision, which is he will have to start from the preliminary steps of section 148A. Therefore, he can issue a notice because the 6-year time limit has not lapsed.
Okay, understood. Abhinav, can you also explain the case study 2 that we have prepared?
Yes. Now, the only difference or two differences from the previous case study to this case study is the assessment year involved in this case study is assessment year 21-22. And the notice under the new section 148 is issued on 29/9/2029. Now, the principles that we discussed for the previous case study will apply to this, which is the time limit that we have to see is 6 years, because the proviso says any assessment year 21-22 and before, the 6-year time limit will apply. In this particular case, the 6-year time limit expires on 31st March 2028. Therefore, the notice issued for this particular case study under the new provision on 29/9/2029 is not valid because it's time barred. The 6 years limit has lapsed. Therefore, the notice under this case study will not be valid.
Okay, thank you, Abhinav. So moving on, in the case study 3 that we have prepared. So this is also the same assessment year 21-22. Here, the notice under the new section 148 is issued on 30th August 2026. Now, the question is, will time limit under the new section 149 apply or not? Like Abhinav explained, and I also explained in the previous slide, there is a proviso in section 149 which states that for assessment year 21-22 and before, a notice under 148 cannot be issued beyond 6 assessment years. That means they are invoking the time limit that is prescribed under the old assessment scheme. So here, in this case, fortunately or unfortunately, the time period of 6 years has not lapsed. So therefore, here a notice can be issued under 148, but the time limit of the old 149 only will apply. And the next question is, will the reassessment be governed by the provisions of new section 148? The answer to this is yes. You have to comply with the new provisions. That is, you have to start from 148A, as how Abhinav explained in the previous case study, and then continue with the process that is prescribed under the new reassessment scheme. Moving on. Next, we will be studying about the taxation and other laws, relaxation and amendment of certain provisions act 2020, which was introduced by the parliament in the year 2020 due to the situation surrounding COVID. So we all know that in 2020, pandemic happened and lockdown was imposed. So because of this, assessees as well as the departments were facing a lot of difficulties in complying with various provisions and laws. So to provide some ease to them and also to relax certain things, this Amendment Act was introduced in order to extend the timelines for completion of certain acts and procedures. Now, in the coming slides, we will be reading about the timeline extension that is being provided under the Act and the notifications that were issued with the power granted by this Act, and the trouble that these notifications are causing to the assessees, which has led to the filing of number of writ petitions before various high courts. So here we are looking at the chart where we have prepared the extension of timelines by the Act. So the Act under Section 3(1) initially provided that those procedures or acts that fell for completion between the 20th March of 2020 and 31st December 2020, the timeline for completion of such proceedings, it was extended till 31st March 2021. The Act also stated that for any further extension, they had granted the power to the central government to issue such notification as and when necessary, depending upon the COVID situation. Then on 31st March 2021, the central government issued a notification extending the timeline for completion of these activities till 30th April 2021. So here the central government did as to whatever power was granted to them by the Act, but they did one more thing. They inserted an explanation in the notification saying that for compliance of procedures under Section 148, the law that was prevailing before 31/3/2021, that is the pre-amended law, would only apply. So this is the explanation that was inserted by the central government. And then this completion activity, this was further extended to 30th June 2021, and the notification also had the same explanation that was inserted in the 31st March 2021 notification. So now we will see what impact this explanation has created in the coming slides. So like I said, Section 3(1) of this Act, Amendment Act, it had conferred power on the central government to only extend timelines for completion of certain compliances under the IT Act. So we have extracted the portion where this particular power was granted to the central government. And then in the subsequent notification, in the second point, we all see this explanation was added by the central government. It says, for the removal of doubts, it is hereby clarified that for the purpose of issuance of notice under 148, as per time limit specified in 149 or sanctioned under 141 of the IT Act, under the subclause, the provisions of 148, 149, and 151 of the income tax, as the case may be, as they stood as on 31st day of March 2021, before the commencement of the Finance Act shall apply. So this was the explanation that was inserted. Now, looking at this explanation, one may wonder whether this power was in fact granted to the central government to dictate which law to apply or not, or did the Parliament grant an excessive delegation of power to the central government to insert such an explanation? So these are the queries that has been raised. Now, because of this explanation being inserted, what happened was the department had started issuing notices under Section 148 after 1/4/2021 and before or on 30/6/2021. Notices under Section 148 invoking the old procedure of law, taking protection of this explanation. So now, because of these notices being issued, the assessees, they have faced problem, or they have stated that when a provision is not even there in existence, when that has been completely substituted and repealed, and a new set of provisions have come into effect from 1/4/2021, it is not right on the part of the department to issue notices invoking the old provision of law, which is not there in existence at all. So this is the grievance of the assessees once they have received this 148 notice, and that has been filed as writ petitions before various forums. So now we'll be discussing the two judgments that has been rendered by the two high courts, Chhattisgarh and Allahabad, who have rendered judgments on this point of question. So this is the Chhattisgarh High Court judgment in the case of Palak Khattuja versus Union of India. So like I said, the writ petitions in this matter was with respect to challenging the notices under 148, which were issued invoking the old provisions of law after 1/4/2021. Now here the arguments of the petitioner were two-folded. The first argument of the assessee was that when you issue a notice after 1/4/2021, you have to follow the procedure that is prescribed under the new scheme. Like how Abhinav explained, first you need to issue a 148 capital A notice before issuing a 148 notice. That you have to conduct an inquiry, you have to give me an opportunity of being heard, and then you have to pass an order on the inquiry that you have conducted. Only if you are satisfied that these things are correct and that you still have the right to issue a notice under 148, you can directly issue a 148 notice. But the assessee says this is not has been followed. You have directly issued a 148 notice invoking the old provision of law, which is not even there in the existing time. And then the second argument of the petitioner was that this notification that has been issued by the central government in excess of the powers that has been granted by the act, that cannot override the provisions of the Income Tax Act. Now, the parent act as the Income Tax Act, that has been amended by the Finance Act 2021. So a delegated legislation which has been granted to the central government, that cannot bring in a new set of law, that cannot say that the old provision only will apply, that cannot override a provision that has come into existence from 1/4/2021. So these are the two arguments that were put forth by the petitioner. The department also had its own set of arguments saying how the notice under 148 invoking the old provisions are valid. Here, the argument of the department was that this notification that has been issued by the central government extending the application of old provisions of 148 was exercised with respect to the power that has been granted by the Amended Act 2020. And this power was exercised because of the COVID situation. This extension of the old provision was in fact placed because of the COVID situation and to ease the assessees and the department because of them facing these difficulties. The department also argued saying that this delegation of power that is granted to the central government should be considered as something that is a sound basis of an administrative efficiency, and this is not like an abdication of power. While arguing, they rely on a Supreme Court judgment in the case of A.K. Roy versus Union of India. So in that case, the facts are that there was a 44th Amendment of the Constitution of India, and there the Parliament had granted power to the central government to bring notifications as and when necessary to make certain provisions of the act come into effect. There the court held that this power that has been granted to the central government cannot be called as something excessive delegation of power. Here, the central government is only trying to aid the parent act. They are not going against it. They are not overriding the parent act. And all it is doing is to keep the intent for the purpose for which the act was formulated. Now, applying that principle to the present case, the department tries arguing that in this case also, the central government is given the power to extend the time limit to protect the intent for which this enabling act was formed. So, by extending the timelines and also extending the application of the old provision of law, the central government is not going in any way against the intent for which the main act was formed. They bring in the principle of doctrine of control legislation. They say that the legislature still controls the central government. They have given them the power to extend the timelines, and by extending the timelines and also by extending the application of a certain provision does not mean that they are overriding the provisions for the purpose for which the main act was enacted. They say that the legislative delegation exercised by the central government is only to uphold the mechanism that prevailed prior to 31st March 2021. Now, in this judgment, the Chhattisgarh High Court was of the view that this notification that was issued by the central government to extend timeline for issuance of notice under 148 is done only in excess of the power that was granted by the act. So they have not gone beyond the power that has been granted to them, is the view of the court. And the court is of the view that by effect of this notification, the central government, what it has actually done is that they have protected the individual identity of the old section 148, and they have saved it till 30th June 2021. So when the timelines for completion has been extended till 30th June 2021, the individual identity of the old section 148 is also been saved until this particular period by the central government, is the view of the court. And the court was also of the view that this extension of timeline that was granted by the central government was only to aid the assessee as well as the department. This was done in a very difficult situation because of the pandemic situation. This extension has happened. So this should not be regarded as something that is completely invalid or going against provisions of the main act. So therefore, the Chhattisgarh High Court was of the view that the notices that are issued under 148 invoking the old provisions of law are valid. So here the Chhattisgarh High Court have granted an order in favor of the department. Next, we'll be analyzing the Allahabad High Court decision. Abhinav, would you like to explain the facts and issues that were involved in this case and also the arguments of the assessees?
Yes, yes. So the facts of this case are also similar to that of the Chhattisgarh High Court. The issue was where the assessing officers have issued notices after 1/4/2021 invoking the pre-existing provisions of section 148. They've also challenged the explanations which Janani just spoke about, which state that the pre-existing provisions that were there before 31/3/2021 will apply until 36/2021. So these were the two challenge issues. Yes, Janani, next slide. Yeah. So the first submission that the associate had made was that substitution of provisions omit and thus obliterates the pre-existing provisions. So they had submitted that upon the Finance Act 2021 being enforced, the pre-existing provisions were substituted or repealed with effect from 1/4/2021, and the new provisions came into operation from 1/4/2021. Therefore, the pre-existing provisions were dead and made dead and unenforceable with effect from 1/4/2021 by the substitution that was made through the Finance Act 2021. Now, as a consequence of this repeal, as I already said, the pre-existing provisions were already dead and unenforceable under law. The assessees had also contended that the Enabling Act, which is the Taxation Relaxation Amendment Act, the scope of this particular act was only to enlarge the time limit for issuing notices under section 148. The central government under section 3(1) was never given the power, or was only given the power to extend the time limits within which a notice under section 148 is to be issued. The power given to the central government was not to decide whether which was the procedure that should be followed from 1/4/2021. They had submitted that a procedural amendment cannot recreate a non-existing law. That is, an enabling act which gives only this, which has the scope of only enlarging the time limit, can never prescribe as to which is the procedure that needs to be followed. So that was the first submission. Now the second submission was, there is no saving clause that is present for the pre-existing provisions, either under the ordinance or the Enabling Act or the Finance Act. Now, firstly, as far as the Finance Act 2021 is concerned, when the Finance Act 2021 was enacted and wherein it substituted provisions with respect to reassessment proceedings with effect from 1/4/2021, the Finance Act does not contain a saving clause to extend the life of the pre-existing provisions until 36/2021. So the Finance Act does not contain a saving clause. Now, as far as the Ordinance and the Enabling Act are concerned, both were passed or enacted prior to the Finance Act. So therefore, they could not have had the saving clause. They do not have it also now. Therefore, the consequence of this is the assessee submit that the notifications issued under the Enabling Act should pertain only to proceedings that were initiated prior to 1/4/2021. The next submission is, the delegated action performed under the Enabling Act cannot itself create an overriding effect in favor of the Enabling Act. No, this is similar to what they had submitted earlier. That is, the Enabling Act, through the Enabling Act, the powers given to the central government was only to extend the timelines within which, or to just extend the limitation period within which a notice under 148 can be issued. The central government was not delegated the power to decide which should be the procedure that should be followed with effect from 1/4/2021, because the Finance Act 2021 has been enacted. The substituted provisions have been brought into effect from 1/4/2021. The next submission was, the Enabling Act read with the notifications does not validate the initiation of any proceedings that may otherwise be incompetent under the law. For this, the assessee had submitted that for initiating a reassessment proceedings under the Income Tax Act, the first and foremost thing is the assessing officer must assume valid jurisdiction. The assessing officer must assume valid jurisdiction to even initiate a reassessment proceedings. Now, the facts of this particular case are where the assessing officers have issued notices under section 148 for April 1st, April 1/4/2021 by invoking the previous provisions, pre-existing provisions. Therefore, the SCs had argued that since the assessing officers have invoked the pre-existing provisions to issue notices after 1/4/2021, they have not assumed a valid jurisdiction itself to initiate reassessment, and therefore the notices are invalid. One more additional thing, additional submission in light of this particular contention is, if an notice under 148 has to be issued with from 1/4/2021, as I discussed earlier, the preliminary procedure mandated under section 148 is required to be followed. In the present fact, where the assessing officers have issued notices after 1/4/2021, they have not even followed this particular procedure. That again is making them not assume a proper jurisdiction. Moving forward, the next submission is that the delegation made could be exercised only within the four corners of the principal legislation and cannot overreach it. This is again a similar argument where the Enabling Act only gives the power to extend time limits. They cannot, the central government does not have the power to do anything else other than only extending the time limits. They cannot prescribe what the procedure should the assessing officer follow from 1/4/2021, because the Finance Act expressly states that the new provisions will come into effect from 1/4/2021, and therefore that has to be followed. The next submission was, the Parliament was well aware of the factual situation and the provisions that were existing before or when the Finance Act 2021 was passed. Therefore, they had argued that it was a conscious decision of the Parliament that the Enabling Act would have only the scope to extend certain time limits and only to have a partial change in the reassessment proceedings. That is, only the scope of time limits alone they can prescribe. However, the Finance Act, when they enacted the Finance Act, it is very clear that the provisions, the substituted provisions and the procedures must be followed by the assessing officer to issue a notice from 1/4/2021. Now, the last submission is a counter to what the department had contended with Janani will be dealing in a few minutes. So in the section 3(1) of the Enabling Act contains a non-obstante clause. The department had argued that this non-obstante clause would override the provisions of the Finance Act. For a counter of that, the assessees have contended that the context and purpose must be seen, and it cannot have a wider meaning and application to defeat the other laws. Yes, Chairman.
Thank you, Abhinav. Moving forward, we'll now look into the submissions that were made by the department. The first and foremost submission that the department had put forth was with reference to the doctrine of presumption of constitutionality. Now, we all know that this doctrine basically means that if a parliament enacts an act, then the court must always consider that particular act to be constitutional unless and otherwise strong evidences show that the act is contrary or it's arbitrary or is violate of any provisions of the act. So the department argues saying that you have to apply the doctrine of presumption of constitutionality to the Enabling Act. You have to see the intent for which this particular Amendment Act 2020 was brought into by the Parliament. So applying this doctrine, the department says that we will not hold whatever has been exercised by the central government with respect to the power granted by the Enabling Act as something invalid. And the second argument that the department posed is with respect to the non-obstante clause that section 3(1) of the Amendment Act 2020 has. So the 3(1) says, notwithstanding any other provisions or notwithstanding any other provisions of any other act is what has been stated in the Amendment Act 2020. So the department says you should give some importance to this notwithstanding clause. That means this section 3(1) contains a non-obstante clause which will clearly override any other period of limitation or any other disability that may arise from any other act. So this has to be given a very true meaning to it, and that this cannot be controlled or overridden in any manner. The third argument that is posted by the department is with reference to the mischief rule. Now, generally, we use the mischief rule when there are two interpretations to a particular law, and we try to identify the intent for which this Parliament has enacted the act and what is the mischief for which this act was formed. What is the mischief that this act is trying to cover through this act? So here the department is saying that the mischief is the unforeseen circumstances. That is, the pandemic situation is the mischief here. And this enabling act, the Amendment Act 2020, is formed or formulated or enacted by the Parliament to remedy this mischief. So therefore, they say the mischief rule must be applied to see the difficulty or the remedy that this particular act is trying to cover. And then the department makes a submission that section 3(1) of the Enabling Act, it has to be given a free play. You should not read it in a very narrow manner or something. You have to give it a wide meaning. And this non-obstante clause that is provided in the section has to be given a great reference to. And by reading it in a very narrow manner, the department is saying that they would be hand-tied and they'll be restrained from taking any action. And they also say that these notifications that are being issued by the central government, they're only clarificatory in nature. They're saying all the central government is doing is only extending the timelines for completion. And by extending, they are also extending the provisions that were available when the Enabling Act was formed. So they are saying that the explanation that has been inserted by the central government is not creating any new law per se. They are only extending the provision that were existing as on date the Enabling Act was formed. And this power is granted to them by the Act. So therefore, they are not going against the provisions of the Act for which this Amendment Act 2020 was enacted by the Parliament. So here, the Allahabad High Court had given its view in favor of the assessees or the petitioners. They had agreed to the arguments that were posed by the assessees. So they say that once a new provision has been put in place of a pre-existing provision, that means the old law has lost its life, it's dead, and it does not have any surviving rate, and that the old provision will apply only for those things that are already done or already undertaken, or there are any express things which has been stated that it will be done only under the old law. If these three things are not there, then the court says that only the new provision that has been come into place for the pre-existing provision will only apply. Now, it's a general principle of administrative law that when you exercise a particular act, the law that is prevailing at that point in time should be considered as the applicable law. So the court says that when you initiate fresh 148 proceedings after 1/4/2021, the law that is prevailing is the new law. So therefore, the court is saying apply that law. Don't go to the law that is not even there in existence, because that does not have any surviving rate. That has been completely substituted by a new set of provision. So the applicable law is the new law which has been framed by the Finance Act 2021. So apply that law. You can still initiate 148 proceeding, but follow the procedure that has been come into existence from 1/4/2021. And the second finding of the court was that there is no saving clause to save the life of the pre-existing provisions, neither under the ordinance or in the Enabling Act or in the Finance Act 2021. So absence of any saving clause to extend the life of the provisions that have been substituted from 1/4/2021, the court is of the view that department cannot issue notice after 1/4/2021 under a dead law. Then the third finding of the court was that you have to look into the intent for which this Enabling Act was framed. This Enabling Act, Amendment Act 2020, was framed by the Parliament only to extend the timelines. There was no intention of the Parliament to say which law will apply. At that point in time, no doubt it was only one 148 proceeding that was present. So the court is saying that if the new amendment was not framed, if the Finance Act 2021 did not bring the new set of reassessment scheme, then in that case, the department, they could have very well initiated reassessment proceedings with the aid of the extension of timelines using the old procedure of law. Now, because a new act has come into force, the department is saying, the court is saying, you can initiate notice under 148 with the extended timelines provided to you by the Enabling Act, but you should apply the law that has come into force from a particular date, because the old act is not survived anymore. So look into the intention for which the Enabling Act is formed. That was only to give you some limitations on the compliance of certain procedure. So use only that. Do not go beyond what the act was framed for, is the finding of the court. And then the court also says that this jurisdiction of issuing notice under 148 is not something a general rule. They're saying this is a very delicate procedure and it has to be followed by the department with utmost caution. So they say one of the important principle is that the assessing officer should assume proper jurisdiction when he issues a notice under 148. Now here the court is saying that after 1/4/2021, when a new set of provisions, reassessment procedures have been enacted by the parliament, the court is of the view that the assessing officer, on invoking the old provision, in fact lacks jurisdiction, and that this itself is liable, good ground for a notice under 148 to be quashed. And the court also holds that the Enabling Act, which is the Amendment Act 2020, it does not speak of any saving provisions of law. It does not provide any provision which will say that until the extension time period for completion of certain procedures, the old act will apply. The act does not say anywhere about it. That act does not save any provisions of the old law. That being the case, the court is of the view that the absence of any saving provision in the Enabling Act, they say that this Enabling Act can be utilized only for the purpose of saving those proceedings that are hit by the limitation. And the court also explained this non-obstante clause under section 3(1). It is only to protect those proceedings that are already underway. So if you have already initiated any proceeding before 1/4/2021, then you can continue under the old law. But if you are initiating any fresh proceeding after 1/4/2021, he's saying this non-obstante clause will not help you in any way. This non-obstante clause is only to protect those proceedings that have already undertaken before or on 31st March 2021. The court here says that it is only the amended law that will alone apply for initiating proceedings with effect from 1/4/2021. And as regards the mischief rule that was applied by the department while arguing, the court here says that there is no question of two interpretations of law. The law is very clear. The legislation is very clear. The Parent Act says that the new provision will come into effect from 1/4/2021. As there exists no difference of opinion, or there are no two interpretations to a particular law, the court here says that the mischief rule will not have any application to the present case. So now this is what the Allahabad High Court decision has held. So here the court has given a finding in favor of the department. So here the court has also distinguished the Chhattisgarh High Court on certain points. They say it is not correct to look at the delegated legislation to interpret the principal legislation. They're saying that the central government notification cannot be used in order to interpret the main legislation that is made by the parliament, that is a Finance Act 2020. They are saying that this delegated legislation, it can never overreach a principal legislation. And they also say that you cannot just ignore the provisions of the Enabling Act or the Finance Act and say that this Finance Act 2021 will be made inoperative for certain period because the situations of COVID were very high. The court says that you cannot take a pandemic situation and interpret a law, saying that is not the right way in which you have to identify or interpret which provision will apply or which act should be held valid. And the court also says that there is no saving clause for this pre-existing laws. So in the absence of any saving clause, the court says that you cannot just assume that the pre-existing law will only apply. He said that kind of an interpretation is completely impermissible. So the Allahabad High Court has granted an order in favor of the petitioner. They have also distinguished the Chhattisgarh High Court judgment, whereas the Chhattisgarh High Court has granted an order in favor of the department. So moving forward, Abhinav, would you like to summarize the findings of the Allahabad High Court decision?
Yes, Janani. So as Janani has discussed the findings, this particular, the Allahabad High Court has given a decision in favor of the assessees. Now the three main takeaways are, with effect from 1/4/2021, only the substituted provisions will apply. That is, only the new provisions which have been enacted by the Finance Act 2021 will apply. Number two, what happens to the timelines which has been extended until 30th June 2021? The assessing officers can still use the extended timelines until 30/6/2021, but they have to follow the procedure of the new provisions which have come into effect from 1/4/2021. Therefore, as a whole, the substituted provisions alone will apply with effect from 1/4/2021. Yes. Now, an interesting question, whether can there be any remedial measures considered by the legislators to ensure or validate the notices that have been issued by the assessing officers, invoking the pre-existing provisions by issuing notice after 1/4/2021. We have come across certain reports wherein they mention that the government could introduce an ordinance to validate all the notices issued after 31st March 2021, invoking the pre-existing provisions. So the question is whether the retrospective amendment can be brought in and can the notices be validated. Now, almost a similar kind of a situation came before the Bombay High Court in the case of Habib Sons, 1947, 1590 or 132. Now, what had happened was the law had required the assessing officer to issue a notice seeking to file a return within a period not less than 30 days, when that was not the period what the provision was providing. And those particular notices were challenged by the assessees. Those notices were held invalid, and then an ordinance was promulgated to retrospectively validate all the notices that were issued during that particular period. That ordinance again was challenged before this particular Honorable Bombay High Court, but the Bombay High Court has held that the ordinance is also valid, and the notices for which a retrospective validation was given through the ordinance are also legally valid. So therefore, we will have to wait and see if any ordinance of that kind comes out to save the notices issued by the assessing officers, invoking the pre-existing provisions and issuing them post 1/4/2021. So this brings us to the end of today's presentation. If there are any questions, we'll be very glad to take it.
Thank you, Janani and Abhinav. It was a wonderful session. I'm sorry, is my voice audible properly? Because I was getting disturbances here and there.
Yes,
Yeah,
Prithvi. You're audible.
Fine. So, yes, I think Swaminathan sir can start the question answer session by giving his inputs as well. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Wonderful presentation. Beautiful presentation by both the speakers. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Quick questions to the speakers. The Allahabad judgment, they have stated that if the steps have been taken prior to 31st March 2021, for an example, if the assessing authority has recorded a reason before 31/3/2021, issues notice after 1/4/2021, will it change? In the Allahabad judgment, they have specifically mentioned that if the proceedings have been taken prior to, which will have an effect to this one. If they say like that, if the assessing authority has recorded a reason prior to 31/3/2021 and the notice is issued after 1/4/2021, what will happen? This is my first question.
Yes.
The second question is that the period of limitation has been extended from 1/4/21 to 30th June 2021. Suppose if the government says that 148A will be applicable only from 1/7/2021, can it be a quietus to this issue?
Sir, as regards the first question,
Hmm.
my answer would be like from 1/4/2021, section 148, the way it's worded is, it only says information that suggests that income chargeable to tax is escaped assessment. Now, this particular phase has also been given a definition, a scope is given wherein information will get flagged and or through a final objection. Now, the reasons have been recorded before 31st March 2021, which is the requirement under the pre-existing provisions, wherein the provision said reason to believe. For an assessing officer to have reason to believe, he should have recorded reasons. But because the notice is issuing the notice from or after 1/4/2021, I feel he should follow the provisions mentioned under the pre-existing, under the new provisions with effect from 1/4/2021. Janani can also maybe give us.
But the Allahabad
Yes, sir.
judgment says on a different footing. If
Correct.
proceedings is taken up prior to.
Yes, sir. Sir, generally, a 148 proceeding will start only on the issuance of notice under 148. So you might have recorded your reasons at any point in time, but the proceedings of reassessment starts only when a notice is issued. So it is only the date on which the notice is issued should be considered as the proper date for initiation.
And also because, sir, with effect from 1/4/2021, before answering the second question of postponing the operation of 148A, after 1/4/2021, the assessing officer will have to say conduct an inquiry, give a show cause notice, get a reply from the
Right.
assessee, then see if it's right, and then issue notices. So I feel you should have. So the notices, yes.
So
And what
to-
about the second option for quietus?
Second option, sir, I think if the government brings any ordinance saying that the new act will be applicable only from 1/7/2021, if such kind of an amendment is brought in, then we can clearly say that, or we can safely say that the old provisions will only will apply. But so like Abhinav said, an ordinance may be brought in any time, and an ordinance can validate any notices that are invalid right now to be made valid. So if that kind of an amendment is being brought in by the government, then there is chances that the old provision only will apply until 30th June 2020.
So we come to a conclusion that Chhattisgarh judgment is perfect, so Allahabad judgment has to be tested with great respect. Is it?
Oh, sir, I feel the Chhattisgarh High Court has not gone into any aspect. They have not even decided whether the delegation granted to the central government is excessive or not. They have simply gone on the footing that this has happened because of COVID situation. This act has been introduced. So you have to look into the situation surrounding COVID and then look into the intent, and that is how they have passed the order. They have not gone into the constitutionality of the act. What I feel.
Because I thought of one hypothetical situation in this one. See, suppose if 31st March 2021, I must file my return of income within the specified due date or something like that. The government says that this is the form prescribed for you. I file my return of income for this one. But prior to 31st March 2020, they had a separate form. They said that then you have to file the return of income only on that form. Now that date is also extended. Today, if I am filing it, if it is to be for different assessment years, that form should be applied, or after 1/4/21, you are filing your return of income. Therefore, this present form which is being, see, these types of situations may arise. Anything can happen to any of this one. So the government have never thought of that. As a revenue council, we feel that we would have not thought of this. We made an extension for this one. So to the quietest issue, I just asked that question, that whether if the 148A will be applicable only from 1/7/2021, if they say like that, what will be the effect? Wonderful presentation, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hats off to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swaminathan, sir. We can have views of assessee councils on this point. We've got the view of the revenue. Anyone? Bhaskar,
I'm
sir?
sorry, Prithvi, neither I'm an assessing councillor.
No, I am just on a lighter note.
He's spoken for both.
Both.
Yeah, he's spoken for both. Yes, sir. Very soon going to be neutral, sir. Now.
Welcome. Already we have one honorable. We
Yes,
want
sir.
another also.
Yes. Anyone else? Vishwanathan, sir.
He really speaks honor of income tax. Okay. But
Yeah,
what occurs to my mind is old provision 148, is it a procedural law or a substantive law?
Assessee says it is a procedural law. We say it is a substantive law.
No, but the initiation of proceedings by a notice, according to me, should be substantive.
Substantive. That's a charging section along with 147. Only by issuing 148, the 147 is kicked in. So therefore, it is also to be considered as a substantive provision only.
Once if you consider it as a substantive law, what is the position after dropping that provisions under 148A is the question to be considered.
The major problem is not with the repealed act or with the new act. The problem comes the extension of limitation.
Yes,
That's the new thing this time they have done. We have to find answer for it.
that is why they go into these ordinance extending time, whether it is right to
Pandemic.
extend or right to issue notice. All these questions have come. It is only on that particular area, I feel that is the only crux of the issue which we have to resolve.
The department pleads that due to the pandemic situation, the notifications have been issued. So you see the purpose, what it want to be achieved.
But you should also be very careful in drafting the law, sir. You can't always take shelter.
But Vishwanathan sir, one other problem is also there, sir. In the 148A, as rightly pointed out by the speaker, the form of asset which is specifically mentioned was not properly worded is our thinking also. They should have removed that form of any asset, that if exceeding more than 50 lakhs, the word form of any asset is removed, it would have been a better.
No.
And
Even,
particularly when they are relaxing the law and making more power to the income tax department to proceed for a reassessment.
as of now, asset includes movable also. So
Also,
therefore,
because
it will not be a problem.
if that is taken up, which will be have a better position, because otherwise
this is-
expenditure incurred will also have a meaning.
And Vishwanathan sir, we need not to worry about the drafting of law. It is not with us. We have to be careful in defending the law. The legislature.
That automatically comes, sir.
Whatever
If
it
you
is
are careful
available.
about the draft, all these difference will not be required. No,
That's our job, sir. We try to interpret, we defend the law.
no,
Yes,
but why I said was, Mr. Swaminathan rightly observed there is a comma which is not well placed
yes,
in
sir.
that particular draft. These are draftsmen have to take proper care of this.
Wonderful. Yes, today we had a wonderful presentation in the.
Anyway, Janani,
Yes,
I have seen you in the courts, but you have grown multitudes. All the best to you.
thank you,
You have
sir.
done excellently well. Keep it
Thank
up.
you, sir. Thank you, sir.
One thing we noticed today was a orderly presentation. Like you gone through the provisions of that, then the judgment. The speakers carefully avoided their views. So they said, what is my right for someone?
Whenever Abhinav speaks, he is very careful that he should not
That
put
I
the
got
words.
said.
Sir, adding
Yeah,
on to
analyze
that,
what are the grounds put forth with both sides before
Both
the
sides.
input, and what is the
Adding-
reason?
adding on to that, there was good coordination and
Yes,
they were careful probably under instructions not to reveal their mind at all.
it's a fitting webinar for our 140th session.
140.
We had a session on 140th. I was very particular to have either at 147 or at 140.
But any number of 148 is not sufficient, sir. I have heard 3 lecturers today up to now, but still I am still confused. I don't mind having one more seminar on this.
Yes, sir. Now itself we have 2 contradictory judgments. So we can have more
We'll
sessions.
have
on-
148A.
Ah,
Yes, yes.
yeah, 148.
Rightly.
Yes,
Krishnan, wonderful. Rightly you have put it.
rightly said. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, all of you.
The speakers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining us today. So it was a wonderful presentation once again, and it was very nice to catch up with all of you all. So thank you once again. Have a good day and stay safe. Thank you.
I hope we will have 150 by this Dasara holidays.
Yes, yes. So
We will
for Saraswati Puja, we will march to 151. Before that, we will conclude 150.
Yes,
Thank you.
because Saraswati Devi's blessing should be there and you have it at
Yes.
150.
Yes, sir.
All the best. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.